Start in 2 minutes. Okay, so we will start this week's Parsha. Not only is it Parshas Mishpatim, but we read actually also Parsha Shkolim, which we read about the Shkolim, the shekel, the half shekel coins that the Jews would bring for the building of the Mishkan, and they were counted through them. The reason why we read it this week is because it says that the Rosh Chodesh Adar was the time that they would start. Bezin would go out and announcing that all the Jews have to bring machzas shekel, bring the half a shekel. They use it for the Mishkan, they use it in the Beis Hamikdash, and from that they would have the communal funds. And therefore, we read it this Shabbos, which is Shabbos Mevarchim of Chodesh Adar, the Shabbos before Chodesh Adar starts. There's a fascinating medrash. The medrash Tanchuma says that it's in the merit. They look at the merit of the Jews, that through their averos they get merits. The reason why they have to bring the half a shekel, so the simple reason is, it says there's kefil nafshay, that it's as an atonement, so to speak, for building and creating the golden calf. Meaning that it was through doing the sin of the golden calf, they actually got a mitzvah, which is the mitzvah of bringing a half a shekel. And the Sfas Emes explains that we see a fascinating thing, not only from the half a shekel, but we see this also with regards to the whole going down to Mitzrayim. The whole going down to Mitzrayim seemingly came through a sin, through the brothers selling Yosef. Nevertheless, through that, they eventually came out of Mitzrayim and they got the whole Torah. And the same thing we have with the half a shekel, through making the golden calf, they got actually this mitzvah for all generations. And this is coming to teach us an important lesson, that bringing the half a shekel, which is an atonement, meaning the person is doing tshuva. So when a person does tshuva, not only does he fix up what he did in the past, but on the contrary, he could use that out as a stepping stone and to go much higher and much greater. In other words, not only did you fix what was wrong from before, but now you actually have a mitzvah bringing the half a shekel. Go now to the vert in Tanya. So we've been explaining about the souls that the person has, the godly soul, and how the godly soul is chelik al comes from God. The truth is, in the soul, there's 5 names of the soul, but the Tanya over here, we're only going to focus on the 3 main names of the soul. In general, the soul has 5 names: nefesh, ruach, neshama, chay, yechida. The chay yechida are the internal, the essence of the Jew, and that will leave for a different time. But the Tanya explains here now about the soul, and that each part of the soul is made up of 10 spheres. There's 3 main names for the soul: nefesh, ruach, and neshama. And these 3 names are 3 different levels, but they're also 3 different ways of serving Hashem and interacting with the world and with godliness. The neshama, which is the highest of these 3, in other words, nefesh is the lowest, ruach is a step up, neshama is a step even higher than that, and then goes chay yechida, which is a separate idea and concept for themselves. So The neshama, which is the highest of these three levels, shows on the part of the soul and also serving God through a way of intellect. The ruach has to do with the emotions, and nefesh has to do with actions, meaning it's the lowest part has to do with asiyah, physical actions. And the Tanya explains that each part of the soul, because these aren't just three different types of souls, they are three different types of souls, meaning that there's people who are more of a nefesh, more of a ruach, more neshama. But the truth is that each person has within themselves all three levels, nefesh, ruach, and neshama. And at times they're doing things more of an intellect. At times that they're serving Hashem more with emotion. And at times they're serving Hashem more with the physical. But all these three souls are contain in them 10 attributes, 10 spheres. We're used to hearing the term 10 spheres. And there's a reason why the soul has 10 spheres. Not only the soul has 10 spheres, but each part of the soul has its own 10 spheres, 10 attributes. And the reason why it has 10 attributes is because it says God himself, when he created the world, he created it through 10 spheres, through 10 attributes, 10 midos, which are quickly, just to list them off, it deserves a class for itself, the 10 spheres, what they are. But there's Chachma Bina Das, which is wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. Those are the three intellect ones. And then, which we'll get to a little bit later. And then there's Chesed, which is kindness, Gvura, which is strength, Tiferes, which is beauty, which is another mixture of the two. Netzach is victory. The person wants to be victorious. Hod is splendor. Yesod is foundation of things, and Malchus is kingship. That's just in short, which we'll get to a different time, the specific names of what each one is. But each soul has these 10 spheres, and the reason is because when God created the world, he created, so to speak, or he made, or it's really the word is netzal, from the word of Atzilus. Netzal is just like you take a fire spark. It doesn't diminish anything from the fire, even though it's from the fire itself, but it doesn't diminish anything from the fire. And there's 10 spheres, and through these are 10 spheres. Doesn't mean that God has 10 different characteristics, but those are ways how we view God, how he interacts with the world. And since the soul, it says, we learn in Chumash Bereshis, in Parshas Bereshis, when God created the world, Tselem Elokim Nasa Adam, that God created man in the image of God. So the man too, his soul is created also with these 10 spheres, and it contains them through these 10 spheres. Not only does it contain them, but the Tanya actually says it was nishtalshal. Nishtalshal means it's like a chain, just like a chain that even though you have the lowest link and the highest link are maybe very far from each other, but they're all connected. Maybe diminishing levels, diminishing energy, diminishing revelation, but nevertheless, there is a connection between the lowest link and the highest link. And the same thing with the 10 attributes that the neshama has. Since the neshama is coming from God, so it has these 10 attributes, not just compared to, or not just like the 10 souls, the 10 attributes that we find of godliness, but they are actually nishtalshal. They actually come from these 10 attributes of godliness. And it's because of this that man, and only man, and not other creations, are able to have some understanding of godliness. Other creations don't have these 10 spheres, but man does. And since man has these 10 spheres and these 10 components, shall we say, of their soul, so when he looks into how he acts and how he goes about his life and how he has these 10 spheres, so he's able to have some sort of understanding, some sort of level of godliness. In other words, by looking into himself, as the verse says, from my flesh I could see God, and Chassidus explains it to mean that from looking at oneself internally, so you can have some understanding and godliness, that is precisely because the man is created to be B'Tselem Elokim, that he has these attributes because they're nishtalshal, they come down maybe in a low link, but they're still connected to how it is up on high. And that's why we find also in Chassidus many times it talks about, it compares how the person is, how his intellect is, how his midas are, and from that we're trying to understand how it is in godliness, because there's a connection between the two. And that's why man can understand godliness, and not only that, he has the power to overcome the physical. Moving on to the short halacha for this week. I know growing up, there used to be many times there's this thing, it's not so much in Minnesota, but in other places, you have someone working in the house, you have a maid, and people want to test the maid. You're right, you want to test it. Is it trustworthy? You have a babysitter, you have someone working. You want to test them out. You want to see if they're trustworthy. So what do people do? Some people leave money lying around, and you want to see if they're going to take the money. And if the cleaning lady takes the money, so you know that they're a thief. You know you can't rely on them. The question is, are you allowed to do that? Am I allowed to leave money not just for a cleaning lady, but let's say even in a school. Let's say the school, or you have classmates or a teacher. They want to find out who's stealing what, so you leave an item out for someone to steal, and then you'll find the thief. And the question is, are you allowed to do that? And the poskim say that it's very problematic, and you cannot do that, because we know there's a general rule, lifnei iver lo yisiti michshol. You can't put a stumbling block before a blind person, but we also learned that to mean that you can't make a stumbling block that they should sin. Now, if you leave something out intentionally, that they may take it, even though it's up to them to take it, but if you know that they're a sinner and you're leaving it out and you're making it very easy for them to steal and to take it, so you're essentially making them be able to sin, which is lifnei iver. So therefore, the solution to that would be to be mafkir, make it hefker. You make the item ownerless. By making it ownerless, so even if the person takes it, they in theory have not actually stolen, because it wasn't yours, which also means that you can't later go and claim that you want it back because it was ownerless. So that would be one way that you would be able to test them out to see if they are a thief and trustworthy. However, some say that even this is not permitted, because they say that there's a problem even with causing someone an intention to steal, because the person taking it does not know that you made it ownerless, so they're intending to steal. And some say that that itself would be problematic. And I should note that it's a sin to steal both for a Jew and non-Jew, and therefore lifnei iver would apply. Doesn't matter if the person is Jewish or not Jewish. They also have a commandment in the Torah not to steal, and therefore you would be also transgressing lifnei iver if the person is not Jewish. So to recap what we said, first we started with a vart. We said this week is also Parsha Shkalim, which is always the Parsha before Rish Chodesh Adar, because Rish Chodesh Adar is when they started and they went around announcing for people to bring the shekel, for the half a shekel for the Beis Hamikdash. We brought the Medrash says that through the Averis of the Jews, they get a schus, that through the Averis they got the Averis, meaning the Aver of the Chet Egel, they got the schus, the merit of the half a shekel, which came to atone for the Chet Egel. And this comes to teach us that when a person sins, not only when they do tshuva, not only does it rectify the past, but that also brings them to even a higher level than they were before. And this is the same thing, that through a sin they went down into Mitzrayim, through this that they sold Yosef, but through that they end up getting the Torah, which is a lesson for us in general. Whenever we're down, we transgressed, we should know that we should always use that to go not only fix it, but to step higher. Then we explained that in Tanya, that there's 3 levels of the soul: nefesh, ruach, and neshama. One has the neshama is intellect, ruach is the emotions, and nefesh is the actions. And Sari Aksalaka, we explained, just like when God created the world, He created through 10 attributes. The same thing, the soul has within it 10 attributes, and it's not only that it corresponds that they both happen to have 10, because one has 10, the other one has 10, but actually one comes from the other. And because of that, when a person looks into himself and his 10 attributes within himself, he can have some understanding to godliness. And then we explained when we got through halacha that to test someone out, to put an item for them to take, that is a problem of lifnes iver listimichshel, that you cannot put a stumbling block before someone else, even if they're not Jewish. And therefore, the solution that many say is to make it ownerless, and therefore the person is not really stealing. But some say that that too is a problem, and because even intending to steal, tending to a sin, would be a problem, and therefore somebody should figure out some other way to test someone out to see if they're trustworthy. That's it for tonight. Have a good night. Any questions, please feel free to send an email or text.